pleased to introduce the next generation in motorization technology with the relaunch of our virtual cord motor platform, now featuring Z-Wave radio technology. With Z-Wave built into the virtual cord motors and controls, we are ideally positioned to partner with the most popular low-cost home automation providers. While this effort is ongoing, you and your customers will benefit from the quiet power and simplicity of this platform in our most popular motorized products: cellular, pleated, classic Roman, natural shades, roller, solar, and our soft Roman shades. Although our motorization products are pre-programmed in the factory, there are situations where changes or additions need to be made. This video will describe basic operation and the various programming steps for the motors and controls. We will cover the same topics outlined here in the owner's manual, which is also a valuable resource and provides additional detail. Basic shade control. All virtual cord motorized shades come from the factory preset with the upper and lower limits. Each is also paired to an individual virtual cord. The virtual cord can operate the shade both up, press and release the up button. You can stop the shade at any time by pressing and releasing the opposite directional button, and of course operate the shade down. It will travel to the upper limit or lower limit if you don't stop it. Additionally, there are occasions where you will want to do some fine adjustment to the shade. So for example, if I stop it but I didn't quite reach the mullion where I wanted the shade to rest, I can use what's called momentary movement. To do momentary movement, I press and hold for greater than 1 second the up or the down button. The shade will only move while I'm holding that button down. Again, an example, I'm pressing down, holding it, and as soon as I release it, the shade stops. In addition to the virtual cord which accompanies each shade, you can choose to select a single channel remote for your system as well, whether it's a single shade or multiple shades. The single channel remote operates the same way as the virtual cord in terms of the up and the down button, press and release to move the shades, and it has a home position or a favorite position. In this case, I have a group of shades, all three programmed to this control as a group control, and when I press the home button, all three of them will travel to their preset home position, which is factory set at 50% of the shade length. Of course, these can be adjusted, and we'll talk about that in future segments. LED or light location and battery status for the remotes. So each remote is equipped with an LED light bar to provide valuable status. At the end of a button press or after a button press, the LED sequence would be a series of green flashing LEDs. This tells you that the information was sent to the shade motor and that the battery is good. If that green LED sequence is followed by an amber LED, that tells you that the battery is low and it's time to get a new battery to have on hand. If it should flash red, it is time to change that battery. In addition to the LED feedback provided on the remotes, each shade also has feedback provided by an LED. The shade LED is located on the end of the shade and again also provides valuable feedback. You want to avoid excessively bright conditions for better visibility of these LEDs. In terms of the LED action, when after a motor operation an amber flash appears on that LED, this means that the battery is at approximately 20%. It might be time to purchase some batteries to have on hand. If after a motor operation you get a red flashing LED, this tells you it is time to change those batteries. Program buttons. There are program buttons on both the remotes and on the motors. The recess button on the back of the 2-button and optional single-channel remote are used for various programming functions that are outlined in this guide. And again, they are accessed using a programming tool or a paperclip. In addition to the program buttons found on the remotes, there is also a program operation button on each of the motors. In the case of the solar, roller, natural shades, and soft shades, it's located directly on the motor end. I can press and release, and that actually operates the shade up. If I press and release while it's in motion, it'll stop. And then again, press and release, it'll operate the opposite direction. It operates a lot like a garage door. And that's the case both on the solar roller motors as well as the cellular pleated and the classic Roman products. Simply press and release, a great feature should you ever misplace or lose your remote control. We'll talk about the programming use of these buttons in later segments. Adjusting the shade's upper or lower limit. All shades come factory preset with the limits already programmed. However, these limits can be adjusted. It's our recommendation that the upper limit not be changed due to the fact that raising the shade to too high of a level can cause damage to the product. In terms of changing the upper or lower limit, the process is the same for either. I'm going to actually demonstrate how to change the lower limit. First, press and release the up or down button to move the shade to the current limit setting. Once at that point, I'm going to press and hold the buttons up and down both simultaneously till the LED light bar turns amber, and then release the buttons. Notice that while I'm in this limit adjusting mode, the LEDs are providing feedback on the end of the motor. With it now in adjustment mode, I simply use the up or down buttons to readjust the shade to my desired level. Once I have it at that level, I'm going to again press and hold the up and down buttons simultaneously. The LED light bar turns amber. I again release the buttons, and the shade jogs to acknowledge that new setting is now programmed. Adjusting a shade that's a member of a group of shades. In order to adjust any individual shade within a group, we first have to target that shade to make a change. As you recall, all shades are factory preset to about 50% or half the length of the shade. In order to adjust one of the shades, I'm first going to target it by turning the remote control over and using a paperclip or other small device. I am going to press and release one time the program button on the back side. Now I have flashing green lights on the front of the remote indicating that I am prepared to target this shade motor. Next, I'm going to go to the program button on the end of the shade and press and hold until the light begins to flash green and release. The shade jogs, acknowledging that I am targeting that shade. Now I simply move the shade to where I desire. It's best to use the 2-button remote so I'm not affecting the other shades in the group. Find the position that I like, stop it, press and hold the home button on the single channel remote. Once the LED flashes amber, I'm going to release the button, and now that new home position is set. So just raise it up a little bit, press my home button and release, and all 3 of the shades in this group went back to their home positions. Reversing motor direction. All of the motors are factory preset to operate up when the up button is pressed or down when the down button is pressed. However, this setting could be inadvertently changed in the field. If that should happen, follow these steps. First of all, make sure the shade is not at the upper or lower limits by moving the shade to some point in between. Stop the shade. Now, with it in that position, I'm going to press and hold both the up and down buttons simultaneously. The light turns amber and I release. the shade jogs. Now it's important that I don't move the shade, and I immediately proceed to press the up and down buttons again simultaneously until the amber light flashes. The shade jogs. I have now reversed the shade, so down is up and up is down. Obviously, this would be the state where someone would want to make the reverse because they had inadvertently made it go backwards. Adding a new remote when the only remote controlling the shade is lost or damaged. Don't forget, with the virtual cord platform, I always have the ability to raise or lower the shade from the onboard operation button. I simply press and release. Now I can close that shade until I receive the replacement control. Once I have the new control, I have to prepare the shade to accept it. So the first thing I have to do is erase that original control that was paired to it. To do so, I'm going to press and hold the program button till the LED flashes green, then amber, and jogs, and release. I've now erased that original control. The process of adding the new starts with double tapping or pressing and releasing in rapid succession twice on the program button till I get LEDs flashing on the front. You'll get an amber and a green flashing simultaneously. Finally, I go back to the program button, press and hold for a green flashing, and release. The shade will jog, acknowledging, and now I have control with the new remote. Adding a new single channel remote as a group control. If a single channel remote was not selected at the time of purchase and you want to add it later, it's no problem. Once you have the new control, follow these steps. First, we have to exclude the current control that operates the shade, in this case, the virtual cord. To exclude it, we first press and release the program button on the rear of the control 3 times in rapid succession. We refer to that as a triple tap. 1, 2, 3. The LEDs will alternately flash amber. So that's step 1. Step 2 is we have to access the head rail or the motor end and press and hold the program button till the LED flashes green and release. The shade will jog to acknowledge the exclusion. Next, with the new control that you've received, you have to double tap the program button on the rear, press and release, alternating green and amber flashing LEDs. Then finally, again going to the program button on the end of the motor, press and hold, wait for my flashing green, and release. The shade jogs to acknowledge. Now I have the single channel remote also included to this shade. Adding a secondary remote to a group of shades for individual control. So in the last segment I described how to exclude the current virtual cord so I could add a single channel remote to act as a group controller. I now have to add back the virtual cord so I can have individual control of this shade. The process to do this starts with taking the single channel remote, and on the back side I'm going to access the program button and double tap or press and release in rapid succession twice, 1, 2, and I will get acknowledged with an amber and green alternating flashing light bar. Next, take the the virtual cord that I want to add back for my individual control, and I'm going to press and hold until the LED light bar flashes green and release. I have now joined these two controls together, and they acknowledge that by flashing green together. Next, I have to reassociate the virtual cord with the shade. To do so, again, access the program button. I'm going to press and release 1 time, alternating green flashing LEDs. Press and hold the program button, wait for the flashing green, and release. I've now added that virtual cord back as individual control. You will then repeat this same process for each individual shade within the group. reassigning a 2-button remote to act as a group control. So with the virtual cord platform, each and every shade comes with a virtual cord that's individually paired to that shade. And there are many benefits to having that individual control, from making adjustments to an individual shade to just the simplicity of walking to the control, making the shade go up and down. However, you can utilize one of the virtual cords within your system to act as a group control for multiple shades. We'll use the example behind me of these 2 shades that we're going to create a group with and have one virtual cord act as a group control while I maintain or have individual control of the other shade. All right, so the process starts with taking the virtual cord for one of the shades. Again, in my example, I only have 2, and I'm going to exclude it from the shade. To do so, I am going to press and release 3 times in rapid succession, and I will get a flashing amber on the front of the control. To finish the exclusion process, I'm going to press and hold the program button on the motor end until the light flashes green and release. I have now excluded it from that shade. The other shade, or other virtual control, is the one I'm going to designate as my group controller. So this one already controls this shade as a primary. I now have to add it to the second shade as a primary. To do so, double press, I'll get amber, green flashing LEDs, access the program button on the motor end, press and hold until the LED flashes green, and release. The shade jogs to acknowledge, and I now control both of these shades with my group control. As I mentioned, I do want to maintain individual control of this shade with the original virtual cord, so this is the process. The process is as follows. So my group control virtual cord, I am going to double tap the back button, press and release, alternating green and amber, take the virtual cord, the original virtual cord that I now want to join back. I'm going to press and hold, watch for the LED to flash green, and release. These 2 are now paired together. So now I just have to associate this virtual cord back to its original shade. To do so, press and release 1 time the button on the back, flashing alternating green LEDs. Press and hold the program button for flashing green, release. I've now added back the individual control for the roller shade. Individual control and group control.